Just minutes ago, chaos quietly erupted inside the palace. A leaked school report on Princess Charlotte has left royal aides scrambling. It wasn't just a few poor marks. It hinted at pressure, emotional strain, and difficult choices ahead. And now, the monarchy is facing questions it didn't expect. Charlotte's school life. What we know. Behind palace walls, every move of Princess Charlotte is watched closely. Not just by the press, but by the palace itself. At just 8 years old, she already carries the weight of being a future senior working royal, second only to her brother Prince George in line from her generation. And nowhere is that pressure more quietly present than at Lambrook School, the elite co-ed prep school she currently attends with George and younger brother Prince Louis. Lambrook is no ordinary school. Nestled in the Berkshire countryside, it offers horse riding, Latin classes, forest learning, and a student body filled with children from the UK's most powerful families. But more importantly, it's a transitional institution. Children stay there only until around age 13. For Charlotte, this means a big educational decision is fast approaching, and every report card carries more than just grades. It carries expectations. Sources from GB News reveal that both Prince William and Princess Kate are heavily involved in their children's academic planning. They're not absentee royals when it comes to parenting. They do school runs, attend meetings, and read every line of teacher feedback. Charlotte, so far, has been described as outgoing, competitive, and a natural leader in sports and social activities. Teachers reportedly praise her energy and enthusiasm. But behind the scenes, insiders say her performance is being monitored more closely than ever. Because decisions about her future aren't just private family matters. They're matters of national interest. Unlike George, whose educational path seems somewhat more traditional and public, Charlotte represents a changing monarchy, one that's expected to reflect modern values, balance femininity and leadership, and still carry the discipline of the crown. That's a lot to place on the shoulders of a girl who hasn't even entered her teens. This is why what came next caused alarm. Because one school report wasn't just a private note from a teacher. It became a palace-wide concern. A school report that upset the palace. What appeared to be an ordinary end-of-term school report quickly spiraled into a matter of royal stress. According to whispers reported by Catalunya Diary, Princess Charlotte's latest academic feedback allegedly included a few unexpected comments, ones that sparked unease behind palace doors. While the exact contents remain private, insiders hint at phrasing that raised eyebrows. One source suggested the report touched on Charlotte's discomfort with academic pressure and hinted at potential struggles adjusting to growing workloads. For a typical student, that would be normal. But for a future royal under constant scrutiny, it could become front-page news. The concern wasn't just about Charlotte's performance. It was about how the media might weaponize it. The palace is well aware of how headlines work. A single sentence about academic struggles could turn into "Princess struggles with school life," igniting debates about royal parenting and child development in high-profile environments. "Leaks like this are what we fear most," said one former royal aide. "They're small, in fact, but massive in consequence." Within hours of the rumors surfacing online, palace staff were reportedly scrambling to assess the situation. Not because Charlotte did poorly, but because the phrasing could fuel a media storm, or worse, cast doubt on the family's educational plans for her future. At stake? The upcoming secondary school decision. With Charlotte approaching the age of transition, Every bit of feedback now plays a role in whether she'll attend a traditional elite school or somewhere more modern and nurturing. There's also the issue of public perception. Charlotte, unlike George, has often been portrayed in the media as the spunky, spirited one, a contrast to George's more reserved future king image. A report hinting at difficulty in academics could clash with that narrative and create a new, potentially damaging storyline. Internally, aides are also worried this moment could spark comparisons between the royal siblings, something the family has always tried to avoid. Any suggestion that one is thriving while another is struggling could impact both children's public images unfairly. Most importantly, there's concern about how this will shape Charlotte's identity in the public eye. Once a narrative sets in, especially about royal children, it rarely fades. That's why even a single school report can trigger panic inside the palace. And as the clock ticks toward the big school decision, that panic is only growing. The big school decision looms. Behind the palace gates, the clock is ticking. Princess Charlotte is quickly approaching the age where she must leave Lambrook School, which only educates children up to age 13. That means one of the most significant decisions for the young royal and for the monarchy's image is just around the corner. Where will she go next? Unlike her older brother, Prince George, who was reportedly being prepared for Eton College, Britain's most elite all-boys boarding school, Charlotte faces a far more complex choice. According to sources in Marie Claire UK, William and Kate are now under intense pressure to pick the right secondary school for their daughter. And it's not just about academics, it's about optics, image, and future responsibility. Insiders say Eton is not an option for Charlotte, not just because it's male-only, but because sending her there would trigger questions about tradition versus progress. Royal watchers note that while George's educational path seemed predictable, Charlotte's must reflect modern expectations for royal women: strong, smart, and relatable. That's where Marlborough College comes in, the school attended by Princess Kate herself. Marlborough is co-ed, prestigious, and known for a balanced approach to academics and emotional development. It could be a safe and symbolic choice. But here's where things get tense. The recent school report has allegedly complicated that decision. If Charlotte is perceived as struggling in high-pressure academic environments, choosing a traditional, exam-driven school may backfire. The palace knows it must avoid a scenario where she's seen as underperforming or not living up to expectations. One school report, even one phrase, could shift the entire conversation. An advisor familiar with royal education planning told Republic World, "The decision for Charlotte's next school isn't just a family choice, it's a public message. It sets the tone for how she'll be seen as a young royal stepping into her own." That's why this isn't just about choosing a school. It's about choosing who Charlotte will be in the eyes of the public. A confident future royal? A relatable student finding her way? Or a headline target due to misunderstood feedback? Behind closed doors, meetings have already begun. And sources say the school report, however ordinary it may seem, it is now being treated as a tipping point. Why palace insiders are nervous. Inside the palace, this is more than a parenting matter. It's a PR emergency in slow motion. While school reports are private affairs for most families, in the royal household, everything is political. Every comment about Princess Charlotte's performance, attitude, or adjustment can be twisted, leaked, or magnified beyond reason. And now, that's exactly what insiders fear is happening. Historically, royal schooling decisions are kept under lock and key until announcements are made. But this leak, if real, breaks that rule, sending panic through senior aides and communication advisors alike. Sources from Marie Claire UK suggest that internal tensions have already begun to rise. With Prince George's path more clearly defined, there's now growing concern that Charlotte is being unfairly scrutinized or compared, creating pressure on both the children and the palace itself. An insider reportedly warned, "When something leaks, no matter how small, it becomes the public's playground. That's the danger, not the content, but the reaction." And the reactions are already bubbling. If the report highlighted struggles, even minor ones, that could be spun into narratives of failure, weakness, or inadequacy, especially by tabloids hungry for royal drama. There's also another layer. Charlotte is not just the only daughter of William and Kate. She represents the next generation of royal women, following in the footsteps of Princess Anne, Diana, and Kate herself. Expectations are sky high, and any perceived shortcoming could stir controversy around how the monarchy prepares girls for leadership and public life. Palace insiders are now racing to control the narrative, even if that means privately briefing friendly media, downplaying rumors, or reframing the report's feedback as part of normal childhood development. And yet, the fear remains, because once a storyline escapes the palace, they no longer own it. Social media, press outlets, and public perception take over. One royal staffer summed it up. "It's not about grades, it's about control, and right now, they've lost it." As William and Kate try to protect their daughter from the pressures of her future title, aides are being forced into rapid response mode, all because of a report that was never meant to leave the classroom. But now that it has, the damage may already be done. The public and media reaction. Once word of Princess Charlotte's alleged school report leaked into public view, it ignited a chain reaction the palace had hoped to avoid. What should have been a quiet educational moment turned into a viral talking point, one now dissected by millions. Social media went into overdrive. Across X, Instagram, and parenting forums, opinions were flying in from all directions. Some voices came out in strong support of Charlotte, calling for empathy and reminding the public that she's still just a child. Others, however, used the moment to question royal parenting, the pressures placed on royal children, and whether the family was being too private or too strategic. The media wasted no time. Within 24 hours, headlines from tabloid giants and mainstream outlets alike were speculating on the issue. Some ran bold with phrases like "Princess Charlotte struggling in school" and "Palace panic over academic report." Even more reserved outlets acknowledged the heat around the situation and the risks of staying silent. Royal commentators and biographers began weighing in. They noted the clear shift in tone. This wasn't about education anymore, it was about image. The monarchy, already under immense scrutiny, had once again found itself at the center of a public debate. It didn't help that comparisons soon began. Prince George's academic path, Louis's early development, even Harry and Meghan's parenting choices were pulled into the mix. Everyone suddenly had a theory about how Charlotte's report fit into the bigger royal picture. Inside the palace, there was real concern. Aides reportedly began internal briefings, anticipating questions from reporters, planning how to steer public opinion, and preparing counter-narratives in case the rumors spun further. The issue wasn't necessarily the content of the report, it was the fact that it had leaked, and that now the palace no longer controlled the narrative. What should have been a standard school update had turned into a reputational balancing act, and the stakes were growing by the hour. What the report really said, hypothetical. Though the full contents of Princess Charlotte's school report remain behind closed doors, Those close to the situation have suggested what it likely included, and why it caused such alarm inside the palace. Sources suggest the report was balanced, likely highlighting Charlotte's strong social development, confidence in group settings, and creativity. These are all consistent with her public appearances: energetic, expressive, and engaged. Her teachers may have praised her leadership skills and participation in sports or arts, all of which align with how she's described by royal insiders. But there were likely also remarks about areas needing improvement, notes about her adjusting to academic pressure, or suggestions for further support in specific subjects are completely normal for a child her age. In any regular family, such observations would prompt a discussion, not a crisis. Unfortunately, the royal context changes everything. Even a mild note about stress under assessment or needing structure in certain classes could be misinterpreted by tabloids as signs of failure or weakness. A comment meant to support her development might instead become a damaging headline. The real issue isn't the report itself. It's the fear of what it could become in public hands. That fear has now manifested into full-blown panic. In truth, Charlotte's report likely reflects a bright, capable young girl growing at her own pace. But in the royal world, even something as ordinary as a progress note becomes a minefield of media frenzy, reputation management, and public expectation. And in that environment, even the smallest words carry enormous weight. The Palace Response Strategy. Inside royal walls, there is no such thing as a casual mistake, especially when it involves the children. The moment whispers about Princess Charlotte's school report began circling online, the palace snapped into action. Senior aides were reportedly summoned for immediate internal briefings. The tone was serious. This wasn't about academic feedback anymore. It had escalated into a full-blown narrative crisis. In the modern age, even a small leak can spiral out of control within hours. The palace knows this. They've seen it happen too many times before. The strategy, according to insiders, was to avoid overreacting publicly. They feared that issuing a formal response could validate the rumors. But silence also carries risk. If the palace says nothing, it gives space for speculation to fester. The goal then was to shape perception, without fueling the fire. Behind the scenes, aides reportedly began working on subtle narrative shifts. Friendly media outlets were briefed off the record, suggesting that the report in question had been taken out of context or misunderstood. These quiet corrections allowed the palace to steer public understanding, without putting Charlotte directly in the spotlight. Simultaneously, they leaned into positive messaging. Stories highlighting Charlotte's vibrant personality, her love for sports, and her leadership in school were pushed into the press. The goal was clear: balance any negative rumors with strong, wholesome imagery. Paint a picture of a confident, well-rounded child, not a struggling royal under pressure. There was also careful coordination with Charlotte's upcoming public appearances. The palace made sure she appeared composed, engaged, and cheerful. Every photograph, every wave, every smile was managed, not artificially, but intentionally. In the royal world, even body language becomes part of damage control. William and Kate were, as expected, silent. That was part of the strategy. By not responding, they avoided giving the story more oxygen. But privately, they were reportedly concerned, not just about the report, but about how quickly their daughter's education had turned into global news. The palace also knew that this moment could set a precedent. If one child's school report could leak, what else might follow? It forced royal advisors to revisit their internal processes, asking how such sensitive information was exposed and how to tighten control going forward. This wasn't just about Charlotte anymore. It was about safeguarding the entire next generation of royals from similar intrusions. And it required a delicate balance: protect privacy, but maintain public trust. In the end, the palace's response was quiet, calculated, and carefully choreographed. But make no mistake, inside, they were rattled. Because once the public starts reading between the lines, even silence can speak volumes. Comparing Charlotte's path with George's. In the eyes of the public, the royal siblings have always been seen as a unit: George, Charlotte, and Louis. But inside the palace, every child walks a uniquely delicate path. And now, with Charlotte's school report making waves, the comparison between her and Prince George is quietly intensifying. Prince George's academic journey has, until now, been relatively smooth. He's older, the heir, and seen as the more reserved of the two. His path, including the consideration of Eton College, fits the classic mold of royal tradition. That's not to say his road is easy, but it has felt predictable. Charlotte's, on the other hand, is becoming anything but. Where George's image has been shaped as studious and composed, Charlotte's has leaned toward outgoing, assertive, and spirited, a princess with presence. She's captured hearts with her confidence at royal events, her quick waves to cameras, and her undeniable charm. But now, that same visibility has become a double-edged sword. When things go right, the public cheers. When even a hint of challenge appears, the scrutiny is intense. And therein lies the palace's deeper concern. If Charlotte is seen as facing even mild academic hurdles, some will question whether she's being given the same preparation and structure as her brother. Others will wonder whether her energetic personality is being supported in the right educational environment. The moment George and Charlotte's paths begin to diverge, comparisons become unavoidable. Sources close to the royal household say the pressure behind the scenes is real. Advisors are reportedly urging William and Kate to keep future decisions tightly guarded, particularly Charlotte's next school. The last thing they want is for it to look like she's being sent somewhere lesser or easier than her brother, especially after the noise around the report. This concern is magnified by public memory. The royals have long dealt with narratives of the spare versus the heir, dating back to Charles and Andrew, and even William and Harry. The palace knows how quickly sibling dynamics can be twisted by the media. One insider shared that every educational decision for Charlotte must now be seen not only as fitting for her, but equal in prestige to George's. If not, it risks becoming yet another royal storyline dominated by division and favoritism. The weight of all this is extraordinary, especially when we're talking about children. But in the monarchy, childhood isn't just private, it's symbolic. It shapes the royal brand for decades. And with Charlotte now under a different kind of microscope, every move matters, including how closely her path mirrors her brother's. Historic pressure on royal children. The panic surrounding Princess Charlotte's school report isn't just about this moment. It echoes decades of history. Royal children have always carried the weight of expectation, but for Charlotte, that pressure is layered. She's not the heir, but she's not invisible either. As the daughter of the future king and a key figure in the modern royal lineup, Charlotte stands at the crossroads between tradition and change. The monarchy is evolving, but public expectations are still rooted in old comparisons: grades, behavior, performance, even posture. The fact that she's a girl adds another layer. There's growing public hope that Charlotte will grow into a modern royal woman, strong, independent, emotionally aware. But when even a routine school report can spark media frenzy, it shows how little room she has of sound. Behind the palace's concern is a quiet truth. Public narratives can shape royal lives. Just as past generations were haunted by stories from their youth, so too could Charlotte's future be shaped by headlines written today. In a monarchy built on image, perception is power. And when that perception starts forming in childhood, it never really leaves. What this means for Charlotte's future. This moment may feel small: a leaked school report, a brief media cycle, a few heated headlines. But for Princess Charlotte, it could mark the beginning of a new phase in her public life. Up until now, her image has been carefully curated. Playful, polite, confident in front of cameras. But now, the world has seen that even she is not immune to pressure, vulnerability, and scrutiny. That shift matters. The palace knows this. They understand that moments like these, no matter how minor, plant long-term seeds. This could influence how they frame her next public appearance, the tone of her education narrative, and even her path as a working royal. It may also change how the public relates to her. The princess who once waved boldly at crowds is now the subject of real-world concern, and that could either deepen admiration or sharpen criticism. How the monarchy handles this now could determine how Charlotte is seen not just as a child, but as a woman in waiting. If managed well, it could humanize her, show the world a modern young royal growing, learning, and facing life just like other children. But if mishandled, it could follow her, unfairly shaping public opinion before she's even had a chance to define herself. Because in the royal family, a single report card isn't just feedback. It's a preview of a future queen's legacy. And right now, the entire institution is watching what happens next. This wasn't supposed to happen. A routine school update has triggered full-blown panic behind royal walls, forcing the palace to re-examine everything, from Charlotte's next school to how the public sees her. As headlines swirl and comparisons to her brother mount, one thing is clear: this is no longer just about education. It's about image, legacy, and the future of a young royal raised under the world's brightest spotlight. The monarchy is learning that even private moments can explode into public trials. And for Charlotte, this might be the first true test of a life already written in history.